area since 1977 with residential and commercial work.
Good evening, friends, and welcome to another episode of Wayback Wednesday. I'm Randy Adcox. Glad you could be with us tonight. We're going to bounce around tonight and look at several different things. We're going to take a kind of a gander through the entertainment in the area over a period of, well, over 100 years, in fact. But we're also going to talk a little bit. I'm still hunting. If you've watched the show the last couple of weeks, you know I've been kind of on a bit of a hunt about a bridge that goes over the railroad tracks, Highway 97 out off North Church Street. And I want to give a shout out to Randy Harrell. He and I exchanged some text messages and so forth. He sent me some pictures, and I'm going to share those with you shortly. We may have kind of narrowed down a time frame on when the overhead bridge was put over the railroad tracks out there, so we'll get to that in a minute. But I also wanted to take a minute and, you know, if you remember a couple of weeks ago, I mentioned this book, Foy Pullen's book, 90 Years of Aviation in Rocky Mount, North Carolina, 1917 to 2007. One of our viewers gave me this book, and I'm so appreciative. I really thank you for that. But I've been reading through it, and I've just there's so many neat stories and memories of Foy Pullen and people that he knew. So I want to take a minute tonight and just share a couple of these with you that I think were really neat. The first one, actually, he's talking about the new airport here in Rocky Mount. And he says, in 1934, the WPA enlarged the field at the airport to encompass all the land enclosed by Highway 301, Highway 97, and west to the area now called Battle Park. Although the landing strip was still sod, a large metal hangar was built and boundary lights were installed around the field. Banks of floodlights were placed at the north and south ends of the field. A total of $95,000 was spent on the project. Now, prior to this, there was just a landing strip, grass field, if you would, grass and so forth, no pavement at all. And so in 1934, the WPA, for those that may not remember, WPA was initiated by President Franklin Roosevelt during the Great Depression. There were so many people out of work. I was reading earlier today, out of a workforce of over 50 million, there were almost 13 million that were out of work during the Great Depression at the height of the Depression. You remember hearing about the suicide, people jumping out of windows, literally killing themselves when they lost their job, lost their home, lost their savings, everything. It was just a horrible time in United States history. But this was a great project. The City Lake here locally was dug as a WPA project. Interestingly enough, I didn't realize while I was doing a little research, even though President Roosevelt started out being called the National Works Program. And it ran that for a year or so before it actually changed the name in 1939 to the Works Projects Administration. That's what WPA stood for. So anyway, the airport, enlarging the airport, I should say, was a WPA project. I didn't realize that's while I was reading this book. So anyway, some neat history there about the Rocky Mount Airport out there. Also, as I'm going through this book, I'm seeing so many names that I recognize. Some of these names, actually, I knew these people. Others I did not. But Foy Pullen had a really good relationship, it seems, by all accounts anyway, with several local people, particularly those who were pilots, of course. And he tells a story about his most memorable flight. And he says, my most memorable flight was made with Mr. A.B. Rose. We had an engine failure on the Cessna in Kingston, New York. We landed in a grass field and were doing real well until we hit a ditch. Nobody was hurt, but the airplane was bent up pretty bad. So bad that the people in New York did not want to fix it. Thanks to Foy Pullen and Jesse Brown, who went to New York and loaded the plane on a pickup truck and boat trailer. They brought it back to Rocky Mount and restored it to like new condition. That was something that was rare to have an airplane that was already deemed to be so damaged that it was unsafe to be flight worthy ever again and just scrap it. But these guys were so keen in their knowledge of aircraft and how an airplane was put together and what was involved in fixing it, that they were able to repair these planes and get them back flying again. So I saw a couple of different stories, in fact, that basically said the same type of story happened with other airplanes. There's a little short blip in here about Charlie Killebrew I thought was interesting. And it says Charlie Killebrew was an aviation cadet in San Angelo, Texas in 1943. He came to Rocky Mount where he worked as a photographer for the Rocky Mount Evening Telegram and ran a studio. Charlie began making aerial photographs as Carolina Aerial Mapping in 1957 using a Cessna Airmaster and a cameraman named Fred Scherer. Fred also worked in the studio developing the film taken from the aircraft. Charlie also used a Cessna 195, a Piper Apache, and a Piper Twin Comanche. Charlie sometimes used another pilot named George Belafonte, who was from Belgium. Dwight Wilson also flew for Carolina Aerial Mapping. Charlie Killebrew's profession was photography, and he was everywhere during his career. In addition to his aerial photography, he recorded every major event in this area for many years. The collection of his negatives is one of the largest, if not the largest, in North Carolina. And if you watch the show, you know we've shared multiple images from Charlie Killebrew's collection that's currently at the Wilson Library at UNC Chapel Hill. So that's just a few of the many stories that are in the book, and I just wanted to share a few of those with you tonight. As I read through more of the book, I'll share more with you, but it's a great little book, a great little read, and I'm really sad that I can't say I never met Floyd Pullman because we did work there at the same time at Air Care, and I'm almost certain our paths crossed probably multiple times. And I'm just sad that I don't remember to this day enough to tell you anything from a personal experience. But that being said, I'm so happy to have got this book in my hands now. So thanks again to the viewer that got it to me. Okay, I mentioned Randy Harrell. He watches the show from, I think it's in Nashville, Tennessee, actually. And old local boy just ended up in Tennessee, and so he watches over the internet each week. And so, hi, Randy. Good to have you with us. But he shares these pictures with me from time to time. We'll share text messages and ideas and thoughts about things that he sees in the show, things we talk about on the show. And so he sent me some pictures and text messages. Some of these go way back, and the picture quality is not great, so bear with us on the quality. But there's some really revealing things in some of these aerial pictures. So number one, Lee, let's go ahead and bring it on the screen for our viewers. This is actually from 1930. And it's obviously an aerial view of the Rocky Mount Airfield, as it was called at that time, looking north. And if you look real good, you can see there on the right-hand side, the upper right-hand side of the screen, at a diagonal going from left to right there, is the SCL Railroad track over there. And then, of course, you see Church Street. And if you look closer, you can see the hangar that was in there by the little snack bar, and I forgot what it was called. It was an airport cafe there kind of thing. But you can see the hangar there in this picture. When we first got looking at this picture, it was interesting in that if you notice up at the very top of the picture where North Church Street, of course at this time it was 301, Highway 301 coming through there. And there's not, it does not appear anyway in this picture, it's kind of hard to tell, but it does not appear that road from the left, which would be Airport Road, it does not appear that it goes across 301 and on, and it continues out to be, in that time, Highway 95, later to be Highway 97. I'm not sure if it's just not visible in this picture, but it sure doesn't look like there's even a road. Now, we know that the road did go across there because I've seen several articles referencing things that were out in that area in the 1930s. But this picture was kind of unique in that it almost appears that Airport Road does not go across there. So not exactly sure. Maybe at some point in the past the road changed or the angle. I'm just not sure about that. This next picture is not great quality either, but there's a couple things I want to point out to you about this one. Lee, if you would, item number 2 for our viewers. This is the same airfield looking south, and it's kind of dark, a little bit of a grainy picture here. Can you zoom? There you go, Lee. Okay, so what you're looking at on the brighter white line there, of course, is 301. To the left of that, the darker line is the railroad track. And if you notice up at near the top of the picture, the curvy dark line, that's Tar River. And of course, the airport is over on the right-hand side there, in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen. And if you look closer, you can actually make out there was 2 runways out there, if you remember. It was 2 runways kind of diagonal each other. And so anyway, when you zoom in, you can almost make out the two runways. This is not a great quality picture. Again, it goes back to the 1930s. And we're not sure who took these. It wasn't Charlie Kittelberg, because he wasn't taking aerial pictures in Rocky Mountain in the 1930s. So it could have been Bugs Barringer. Bugs was certainly in the area. But it could have been one of these other pilots, too, that were flying around here in the 1930s. The next picture is a much better picture. And this is supposedly from 1941. That's what's been identified. And so, Lee, item number 3, if you would. Now, you see this is a much clearer picture, and Randy actually drew that circle you see there, kind of the upper right-hand side of your screen there. That would be, and we're thinking that looks like a bridge. Of course, you see the airport over to the left there, and you can see the two runways, by the way. You see the hangar there in the bottom left-hand corner. You see runway, one of them is running roughly north-south parallel to Church Road 301, and the other cuts across perpendicular to that, and basically flies a east-west takeoff and landing pattern there. But if you look there where Randy has made that circle, and Lee, can you zoom in on that dark circle there that Randy drew? Yeah, right up in there. That would be Airport Road to your left as it crosses over the railroad track. It would be Highway 95 during this time, later to be called Highway 97. I have to admit that does look like a bridge, but here's the kicker. I spoke with Bob Marriott just yesterday, in fact, and Bob was pretty adamant that he remembers when that was a grade crossing, and he said Bob is 89, by the way, 89 years old, and he said when he got his driver's license in 1943, he says that was still a grade crossing. Now, there's a couple possibilities here. One, the date on the picture could be incorrect. It's identified as being 1941, and this is a Bugs Barringer picture too, by the way. We're fairly certain this is Bugs Barringer took this picture, and as meticulous as Bug was about his photography work, it would make sense that the date he's got on here is correct. If Bugs is the one that dated this picture, there's a possibility someone else dated it, and they could be mistaken by a year or so one way or the other. So that's one possibility. The other possibility, of course, is that Bob is mistaken and that the bridge was not, the bridge was there in 1943 when Bob got his driver's license and came across there. And I guess the other possibility that we should consider, even though Rain and I agree, this looks like a bridge. It's like a bridge on the railroad track. But there's a possibility that it's not. It could be that that's just some kind of different color in the pavement where the road went across the railroad tracks. It may not be a bridge at all. But in any case, it's just a really neat picture looking north on Highway 301 and seeing the airport to the left there. And you see the Highway 95 at that time prior to being renamed to Highway 97. And so I've got actually another email sent in to the Department of Transportation trying to get some more information about not only the time when that bridge was put into place, but also when that road became Highway 95/97. Rand and I are both interested in where the road began and where it ended. If you follow that road now, of course, it goes all the way up to, just outside of, I won't say a Hosky, but it's not a Hosky. It's up in that area up there, though, around Oak City, but it's not Oak City either. I'm drawing a blank. I've been up there 100 times over there. I've got a customer up there. But in any case, over the years, routes have changed. Sometimes they'll reroute a road and for one reason or another, and so it's entirely possible that the beginning and ending of that road is there. And of course, as it comes through town, it ends up going out to the west side of Rocky Mount, out by the new airport, and going by the new airport. But in any case, I am hoping to get some more information from the NCDOT about when that road became a designated road as far as the state of North Carolina was concerned, and of course, hopefully get a firm date on when the first bridge was put over the railroad tracks there. So stay tuned on that, and we'll keep you posted as we get more information. Okay, we got a call. Let's get this call. Hello, caller, you on the air?
All right, you were talking about when the time changed about the road being NC 95 to NC 97.
Right.
The overpass in Rocky Mount opened in 1958 they had to take the Palmyra Inn down that was there at the corner of Raleigh Road and South Church Street down.
Right.
And you've had pictures on there before of where the pathway of NC 95 went north on the same roadway of US 301 business.
Mm-hmm.
You've seen signs there.
That's right.
Where both of those, that road had the name NC 95 on it at that point in time when the overpass opened in 1958.
That's right. You're exactly right. I do have pictures of that, in fact. I sure do.
All right.
Okay, buddy. Thank you.
Goodbye.
Yeah, goodbye. Okay. So, yeah, it's as I said earlier, and I want to correct something I said last week, too. I made a comment based on something I had read in a newspaper article when I was doing research, and I think the article, either I misunderstood what it was saying or the article itself was mistaken, but I made a comment last week that this road, Highway 97 today, and Highway 95 back then, had actually also been referred to as Leggett Highway and Cool Spring Road. If you're familiar with this area at all, you know, as I do, and the more I thought about it, I said, wait, that can't be right, because I know where Leggett Road is and I know where Cool Spring Road is, and neither one of those are of this road. And so I think probably, a lot of times articles and people who wrote articles in the paper, rather than saying off of 95 or out near 95 or in the general area of 95, or in this case, Cool Spring Road or Leggett Road, I think they may have just identified something as being Leggett Road or Cool Spring Road when they meant off of Cool Spring Road or off of Leggett Road. So yeah, I just wanted to correct that, because when I thought about it later, I said, well, that can't be right. This road would not have been known by those four names, when in fact there is a Leggett Road or Leggett Highway, and there's also a Cool Spring Road. So anyway, I'll tell you what, it's time for our first commercial break. So Lee, bring it back to me. I mentioned at the top of the show, I wanted to do some research, and we get to the time of the year where people are getting outside more. The weather's getting warm, obviously. If it'll ever stop raining long enough to get outside and enjoy some of this nice weather we're having. So over the years, Rocky Mount has been a lot of different venues for entertainment, from outdoor activities to movie theaters to stage production and so forth. So, and we've looked at some of these before. So some of what we're going to show you tonight, we've gone over before in prior shows. I just kind of wanted to revisit that. So when we come back from the break, we're going to show you some of Rocky Mount's old areas of entertainment. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back with more Wayback Wednesday.
I'm Daniel Moss, owner of Cornerstone Funeral Home, and I'd like to invite you and your family to give our family an opportunity to serve you in your time of need. And we offer a full line of funeral services, everything from visitations to graveside services to cremations on site with a live crematory, as well as a banquet hall to meet the catering needs of our families that we serve. We offer catering service, we offer refreshments prior to visitation and the services of our family, and we want to invite you to come and experience the difference here at Cornerstone Funeral Home.
If you or your loved one is living with hearing loss, and if you haven't found a solution that fits your lifestyle, then you should consult with the local experts at the new Hearing Aid Urgent Care in Nashville, North Carolina. Hearing Aid Urgent Care is a place to go for over-the-counter hearing solutions that will improve your daily life and communication between your loved ones and you. Purchasing in our store does not require any prescription or medical recommendation. Our team of experts does recommend a hearing examination so we can help you purchase the correct product for your personal needs. We hold regular listen and learn events so you can ask questions and work with the high-quality products from our vendors to find out what hearing device will best suit you before you buy. Open Friday and Saturday, 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. And you can call 252-459-4008 to find out more information. Hearing Aid Urgent Care located at 102 West Nashville Drive in Nashville, North Carolina.
When faced with special care needs for elderly or disabled loved ones, families want compassionate, comforting care. That's Tender Touch Home Care Services' goal, providing the level of care we would expect for our own. With over 10 years of home care excellence, Tender Touch provides an array of services that keeps your loved one at home. From personal care, light housekeeping, errands, and meal preparation, to our private duty care program, which combines all of our home care offerings in one package.
Tender Touch Home Care Services, where your needs are our concern.
We're in our 18th year of practice at the Hammer Chiropractic Center, and we've seen over 15,000 different people in the Rocky Mount area. 40% of headaches actually come from a neck problem. Many patients come in taking multiple aspirin, over-the-counter medications and such a day, and we can get you to stop doing that and actually fix the problem so the headaches don't rise anymore. A lot of people think chiropractic hurts. It does not. Most of the people come in and they feel great when they leave.
And we're back. During the break, I was reading some more through this aviation in Rocky Mount over the last 90 years, and I came across a couple things I wanted to share with you. If you remember here, it's been, I don't know, maybe a month or two ago, we talked about the boating enthusiasts in Rocky Mount, and several people were very active in getting boating become very popular in Rocky Mount. One of those fellows was a guy named Ralph Brogdon. Ralph was a mechanic and powerboat enthusiast, and he championed the boating hobby, if you will, around Rocky Mount. Was very active in conducting boat races on the Tar River. This was well before the Rocky Mount Reservoir was ever built, and the Tar River was the place to ride your boat if you had a boat around here. And so, but it seems that in addition to being a car mechanic and a boat enthusiast, Ralph Brogdon was also very interested in aircraft. So much that he built one. He built one that was called the French Flea. And I've got to get these pictures in a format so I can share them with you because they're just really great. Picture quality is not real great, but they're really small. So I've got to figure out how to get them, first of all, copied and then blown up so I can share on the show. And we'll do that in the future, I promise. I just thought it was really neat, though, that Ralph Brogdon had actually, he built several boats, obviously, but he also built an airplane and apparently flew it. I also was just reading something very, short little blip here talking about, it says, Don Bullock had an accident with an NB Barling in an open cockpit two-place plane. He stalled the plane and had head injuries, but not severe. That is, of course, the original Don Bullock of Don Bullock Chevrolet. And that's something I never knew. I never knew Mr. Bullock had been a pilot as well. But indeed he was, and I never heard of a Barling aircraft, B-A-R-L-I-N-G. It's got a picture of it here. It's a pretty neat little airplane. But I never knew that he was a pilot. One of the things that I also read during the break was a real short, I'm not going to read this whole thing, I wanted to share something with you. It was kind of a tragic accident. It says in 1939, Walter Tharrington was working for Mr. Lee as a mechanic and a pilot. One day, three gentlemen came over from Tarboro. One of them was Harry Hicks, and he had been one of our students. He had two people with him, a Dr. House and a friend named Phil Kuntz. They wanted us to take them to Raleigh where they had an appointment. Mr. Lee had a Ryan ST aircraft, which was a civilian model of the airplane that Lindbergh flew across the ocean. Walter elected to take these people to Raleigh. The configuration of the aircraft was such that the pilot sat on a seat in the front of the aircraft. It was a cabin type aircraft. There was a lounge seat behind the pilot that held two people, and another lounge seat behind that also held two people. Walter took off, and about 45 minutes later, the airport got a call that an aircraft was down in Sandy Cross. It was the aircraft that Walter was flying, and it had come straight in and was totally demolished. Everyone on board was killed. There was an investigation to try to determine what happened. A representative of the Department of Commerce came and examined the aircraft. He could find nothing wrong with any of the controls. The investigation led further to the fact that Mr. Hicks was being taken to Raleigh as a mental patient. So I never knew anything about a plane crash in Sandy Cross, but sadly that did happen in 1939, and 3 people lost their lives in that plane crash. So anyway, this little book is just chock-a-block full of stories like that, and memories and recollections of Foy Pullen and the people that he worked with and worked for. So I'm enjoying the book immensely, and again, I'll be sharing with you bits and pieces of it in the weeks to come, and the pictures in here are really good too, so we'll get those on the screen for you at some point. I mentioned before the break that I wanted to go back and kind of revisit a topic we've looked at several times on the show. We've talked about, over old theaters and Masonic Temple and outdoor events, and just, the various things that people did for entertainment all around Rocky Mount in this part of the state. And so I wanted to see how far I could go back and get some examples and just kind of see where I could go. So I quickly found out that Rocky Mount was having areas of entertainment and enjoying itself way back there. I could have gone back much further than I did, but we'll start in the 1900s. So I went back and started looking at some newspaper articles and advertisements and clippings. Broke out my trusty 1908-1909 city directory, was looking in there for some information. So the first thing I wanted to share with you was something that kind of surprised me, if for no other reason than the actual price of what was being sold in this ad. So Lee, if you would, put up ad number 4. This, of course, is an ad that appeared in the Rocky Mount Record. Another newspaper appeared in Rocky Mount many years ago, from Epstein's. Everyone that's familiar with Rocky Mount's history knows about Epstein's men's clothing store in downtown Rocky Mount. When I was a child, it was the place to go for the businessman to go get, dress clothes and also for people just, wanting to look nice for church and so forth. But Epstein was the place to go. So this ad appeared January the 30th in 1908. And you see it's a sharp-dressed gentleman here in the ad. But what really jumped out at me was the price, $10 to $30. Now keep in mind, in 1908, that's a lot of money. I mean, even $10 is a lot of money. I don't know what I was expecting, maybe a couple dollars, maybe $4 or $5, but I certainly didn't expect to see suits upwards of $30 for sale in Rocky Mount. But for those that, wanted to be very stylish and certainly at the top of the fashion scene in Rocky Mount, Epstein's was the place to go. And Mr. Epstein knew that he had customers that would pay a premium price for good quality clothes. And so he did. He charged a premium price, and obviously people were willing to pay for it. So they went and bought some really nice fancy clothes from Epstein's and got all gussied up, if you will, and then went out into town to be entertained. Item number 5, if you would, Lee. This article also appeared in the Rocky Mount Record, March the 12th of 1908. I'm not going to read the whole thing. The gentleman there on your upper right-hand picture, I should say, is Mr. W.E. Clifford. And I'm just going to read a little bit of this. It says, its headline is, "We Are King Tonight." It says, Mr. Arrington, manager of the Masonic Opera House, wishes to announce that he has succeeded in securing Mr. William Clifford in Mr. Walker Whiteside's greatest comedy success, We Are King, a sterling and meritorious comedy in 3 acts. We Are King, written by Lieutenant Gordo King, author of The Magic Melody, has been highly endorsed by press and public, and from present indications, it will live and be regarded as one of the standard plays. Mr. A.W. Cross has spared no expense or effort in surrounding Mr. Clifford with the capable company. The scenic arrangement will be the perfection of stagecraft and carried to its entirety. If manager Arrington always secures such good attractions, the amusement-loving public will have to admit they will have no cause to complain. Mr. Clifford and company will appear in this city this evening. And so, and it goes on and talks a little bit more about the people going to be in the play and so forth. But this was a big deal. In 1908, at the Masonic Temple, these type events were routine. They were plays, and they would bring in these big-time actors, and then they would assemble a group of extras, if you will, from the local community to work with these big-time actors and put on a show for the public. There's no mention about how much it cost to bring Mr. William Clifford to Rocky Mount and perform for the folks here at the Masonic Temple. But I would imagine it was, in that time frame, fairly expensive to get someone, a professional, if you will, to come in and entertain the locals. Okay, let's move on then. Item number 6. This ad, I should say, appeared in the Rocky Mount Telegram in December of 1917. And it's actually an advertisement for another show that was taking place at the Opera House on December 17th, 1917. It says, get your tickets today. Seats at box office 3 to 5 and 7 to 10 daily. The name of the show was Every Woman, okay? And it goes on to talk about people who are into play and so forth. A dramatic ensemble of 150 people. This was a big production. I mean, it really was, obviously. They had a symphony orchestra provide the music for the production. And it was considered to be a musical comedy, is what it says in the lower right-hand corner down there. But tickets for this thing, and get this, prices lower floor were $2, first and second rows in the balcony were $3, third and fourth row $1.50, and there was a war tax of 10%. Not quite sure what that was. I guess World War I was going on, so a war tax of 10% included in each ticket price. But again, to me, this seemed kind of steep. I mean, $2-3 for $2 anyway, $1.50 the further away you were from the stage. But still, that seemed to me to be an awful lot of money to go see a production or a play in 1917. But I suppose, this was a big deal, big production. And so obviously the more affluent and the more successful people locally probably would have made up the majority of the audience. This was not something that your average farmer or worker on the street would have participated in, most likely. But in any case, it was obviously a big production, and a lot of people, I'm sure, did take advantage of this entertainment venue here. Okay, let's move on then. This next picture is also from 1917, appeared in the Rocky Mount Telegram, and it's at the Grand Theater. The Grand Theater was downtown Rocky Mount, and it says, today Thomas H. Ince presents Charles Ray in The Son of His Father. And the plot says, I'll read a little bit here, it says, as described in the film magazine, Gordon Carboy, who was Ray, the spoiled son of wealthy father James Carboy, French, who owns several railroads, is sent out by his father to turn $5,000 into $100,000, which the son claimed to be able to do. Gordon meets Silas Malinsby at Buffalo Falls, where the son is eager to have the railroad build a station at that point. Malinsby cannot come to an agreement with David Slauson, the representative of Gordon's father. Gordon takes things into his own hands and makes a captive of Slauson. When his father shows up, Gordon takes him captive also. Using his father's code, Gordon orders a train crew to come to Buffalo Falls, and construction of the station begins. After work is well underway, Gordon brings his report to his father, who is proud of his son. By then, the little love affair between Gordon and Hazel, daughter of Malinsby, comes to a head, and Hazel promises to become Gordon's wife. So now keep in mind, this is 1917. This is a talkie film here, obviously. And I don't see any pricing here. I looked over it a couple times and did not see any pricing. But I'm guessing this would have been more something that the commoner, if you would have gone to see. That's not to say that the affluent and the successful folks might not have also been, but I kind of just gathered that this was probably not so much a uppity affair, if you will, as it was more something that the general public might participate in. But it was at the Grand Theater. That's one I don't recall us talking about in past shows. The next picture, if you would, lead number 8, this is actually a copy of the actual poster that accompanied this film in the theaters. And you see at the top, it says a Paramount Picture. So this was a silent movie. I think I said talkie earlier. I meant it's a silent movie. And so anyway, that's the movie poster that would have appeared on the billboards outside the theater and probably in some newspaper advertisement too, for that matter. And as you can see there, it's depicting a scene where things got a little testy there between a couple of characters. Okay, Lee, let's move on. I got sidetracked when I was doing research, and I was obviously looking for entertainment ideas and venues and events and so forth. But But I stumbled across a series of ads that just really had me, for a while anyway, kind of mesmerized, and I wanted to share those with you for a couple of reasons. Number one, it was of a soft drink I've never heard of before. And number two, the guy who was in charge of marketing for this product was really, I think, pretty ingenious. So without further ado, Lee, let's bring up, if you would, item number 9. This ad appeared in the Rocky Mount Telegram, July 1919, and it's an advertisement for Reef's Special Soda, R-E-I-F'-S, Reef's. And if you see at the very top of the screen there, it says, Great Inventions, Ironclad Monitor. And so this advertising campaign utilized very well-known events in history. In this case, the Civil War. Everyone back then, of course, would remember the Ironclad Monitor fought in the Civil War. It was a Navy ship. But in any case, he used it as part of his advertising program. And he said, Ericsson's monitor was an invention. It revolutionized sea fighting in the Civil War. Likewise, Reef Special is an invention, not just another beverage, but an invention. The one drink made by a secret process whereby it is thoroughly satisfying and thirst-quenching and is non-alcoholic. It's an achievement, as marvelous as the land, as was the monitor on the sea. Drink rice, by golly, it's good. So this was the first one that I found. Again, this is July 1919. And over a period of 2 or 3 weeks, whoever was in charge of marketing came up with 3 other. And so let's go ahead and go through these pretty quick. Item number 10, this also appeared in August of 1919. And here you see he's paying homage to Thomas Edison. And he says, Great Inventions, Electric Light. Thomas Edison in 1879 discovered a practical means of, golly, it's so blurry that I can hardly read it, of putting carbon in a vacuum and charging the carbon with electricity, providing the incandescent light. So he tells you a little bit of history there about what it was that made the invention great and who it was that made the invention great. And then he goes on and talks about his product. A tiny bit of carbon in a vacuum, presto, we have the invention of the incandescents. Likewise, with Reef's Special, a little secret trick in presto, we have another invention, a beverage with all the thirst-quenching goodness you expect without the alcohol. By golly, it's good. And you see it was bottled at the bottom there, Fleming Bobbitt Company, distributors in Rocky Mount, North Carolina. I'm not sure where this was. I've not found a street address yet. I would bet money it's probably down on Washington Street somewhere. I'll do some more digging, see if I can locate an address for it. Let's move on, Lee. Item number 11, if we could. This great invention talks about the locomotive. And it makes a reference there to George Stephenson. And it says George Stephenson, with his engine called Rocket in 1829, made 24.25 miles an hour. His invention led directly to the great freight and passenger railway travel of today. So again, he utilizes something that's very well known to the public, in this case a locomotive inventor and invention, and he uses that to parlay into an ad about his soda, the Reef Special Soda. So just, I don't know, just something about this campaign, this marketing campaign to promote and advertise this Reef Special Soda. And the last one in this bunch, leading to item number 12, we'll go ahead and say this real quick, we'll take a quick break, is the steamboat. In August of 1919, the last of this ad that I had found anyway ran, and it talks about Robert Fulton, of course, who was well known as it was an invention that enabled Robert Fulton to become a pioneer and lead the world in steam navigation. Likewise, with Reef Special, it was an invention, a discovery made 12 years ago, which enabled Reef to become a pioneer and lead the world in producing a beverage that is really thirst-quenching yet non-alcoholic. By golly, it's good. So, again, this guy, is pretty ingenious to use things that the public was well aware of and was knowledgeable about, and use those kinds of to parlay into advertising his product, and I thought did a pretty good job there. Okay, Lee, bring it back to me. It's time for our next commercial break. When we come back, we're going to talk a little bit more about these entertainment venues. We're going to show you some more pictures, some advertisements, and talk a little bit about some of the things that was popular to do back in the 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, and so forth. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back with more Wayback Wednesday.
I'm Daniel Moss, owner of Cornerstone Funeral Home, and I'd like to invite you and your family to give our family an opportunity to serve you in your time of need. And we offer a full line of funeral services, everything from visitations to graveside services to cremations on site with a live crematory, as well as a banquet hall to meet the catering needs of our families that we serve. We offer catering service, we offer refreshments prior to visitations and services of our family, and we want to invite you to come and experience the difference here at Cornerstone Funeral Home.
If you or your loved one is living with hearing loss, and if you haven't found a solution that fits your lifestyle, then you should consult with the local experts at the new Hearing Aid Urgent Care in Nashville, North Carolina. Hearing Aid Urgent Care is a place to go for over-the-counter hearing solutions that will improve your daily life and communication between your loved ones and you. Purchasing in our store does not require any prescription or medical recommendation. Our team of experts does recommend a hearing examination so we can help you purchase the correct product for your personal needs. We hold regular listen and learn events so you can ask questions and work with the high-quality products from our vendors to find out what hearing device will best suit you before you buy. Open Friday and Saturday, 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. And you can call 252-459-4008 to find out more information. Hearing Aid Urgent Care located at 102 West Nashville Drive in Nashville, North Carolina.
When faced with special care needs for elderly or disabled loved ones, families want compassionate, comforting care. That's Tender Touch Home Care Services' goal, providing the level of care we would expect for our own. With over 10 years of home care excellence, Tender Touch provides an array of services that keeps your loved one at home. From personal care, light housekeeping, errands, and meal preparation, to our private duty care program, which combines all of our home care offerings in one package.
Tender Touch Home Care Services, where your needs are our concern.
We're in our 18th year of practice at the Hammer Chiropractic Center, and we've seen over 15,000 different people in the Rocky Mount area. 40% of headaches actually come from a neck problem. Many patients come in taking multiple aspirin, over-the-counter medications and such a day, and we can get you to stop doing that and actually fix the problem so the headaches don't rise anymore. A lot of people think chiropractic hurts. It does not. Most of the people come in and they feel great when they leave.
And we're back. Folks, if you're just tuning in, you're watching Wayback Wednesday. I'm Randy Adcox. We're talking about entertainment and venues and events that took place in the past around Rocky Mount that were open to the public, for the most part anyway. And just it was neat to look back, I think, and see how people went out and enjoyed themselves. And so I gathered a bunch of advertisements and articles and so forth about entertainment in general. And along the way, I would stop and pick up an article or a picture about something else that caught my eye. So we're kind of taking a zigzaggy path tonight, but stay with me. We'll get through there in the end. All right, Lee, let's go back into this. Item number 13, July 14th, 1920. We've shared this I think it was the exact same one on a previous show, because when I saw it, I remembered it. Two things. Number one, the Riverside Theater. If you're coming down Falls Road from downtown Rocky Mount, just before you get to the river there at Rocky Mount Mills on the left-hand side, that's where the Riverside Theater was. It was also at one point the Rocky Mount Mills store. But in any case, in 1920, this ad appeared in the Rocky Mount Telegram. The Boy Scouts were trying to raise money to get new uniforms. And so they put on this event there at the Riverside Theater, and it says, Marching and Singing by Boy Scouts. Address by Reverend N.B. Strickland, reading by Edmund Alexander, photographs and sketches of Ram, Albemarle Cushing's torpedo boat and Civil War vessels. And then it goes on to talk about recitation by school children, reel and slide views of Southern California with explanatory remarks by Mr. Alexander, patriotic songs by the Boy Scouts, humorous reading by Mr. Alexander, instrumental and verbal music by Home Talent. If you can't attend, please purchase a ticket for someone who can and thereby aid the Boy Scouts to secure uniforms. Just a neat idea here to help the Boy Scouts get new uniforms, or some of the kids who didn't have uniforms at all, help them get uniforms. But as you can tell, it was a kind of a variety show, a lot of things going on here at this event. And it was all for a good cause, and I'd like to think that it had a good turnout and were able to procure enough funds to get all the Scouts new uniforms in 1920. Okay, Lee, moving on. Item number 14, this is actually, it's probably going to blow up big when you put it on the screen. At least it might be prepared to, I figured it would. And that's okay. This was from the 1920 Rocky Mount City Directory. I just wanted to kind of share some things with you. Can we zoom back out a little bit, Lee? Okay. While Lee is working on the Zoom there, and this is my fault, I copied it. The writing was so small. This come out of the, as I said, 1920 Rocky Mount City Directory, and the writing was so small, I intentionally blew it up and then made a snapshot of it, if you will. And so then I reduced it back down to put it on the flash drive. And when Lee put on his machine in there, it blew back up again. So anyway, two things. Number one, this was 1920, as I said. You see the Opera House address is 143 North Main, the Palace Theater at 228 South Main. Now keep that address in mind because, as it turns out, that was a popular place for movie theaters over the years. And of course, you see down below, it says Palace Theater Moving Pictures, 228 South Main. John L. Arrington was proprietor, and Charles H. Arrington was the manager. I'm guessing these two were brothers. And then at the very bottom, can you see that very bottom one, Lee? If we kind of scroll to the right a little bit, this is actually, it cut it off there. I don't know if we're going to be able to get it on there or not. But as you've noticed, it's the same address. It did cut it off. I apologize. There was another theater there also. But anyway, we'll move on to the next picture and maybe make it a little clearer there. Let's go to number 15 if we could, Lee. This was in 1930. This Rocky Mount City Director of 1930. And as you can see here, Mr. Charles Arrington and I'm guessing his brother, and of course Charles's wife there was Annie B. They had the manager of the Cameo, the Lyric, and the Palace Theaters. And then of course down below it lists the local motion picture theaters in Rocky Mount. The Cameo at 184 Northwest Main, the Lyric Theater at 130 Southwest Main, the Palace Theater at 238 Southwest Main, the Roxy Theater at 127 Southeast Main, and the Savoy Theater at 130 East Thomas. The Savoy Theater, I believe, was either the same theater or right next door to what would later become Booker T. Washington Theater. And so, as you can see, by 1930, Rocky Mount had a number of theaters and places to go watch a movie. And so, the movie industry was certainly producing a lot of entertainment for people. Item number 16, Lee, by 1937, we had another theater here, the Center Theater, of course. And this movie poster here talks about a movie called 100 Men and a Girl. And I don't see any price here. I'm not sure what this was as far as how much it cost to get in there. But a couple things, the Center Theater was one of the first theaters in Rocky Mount to have air conditioning. Now, in this ad here, it does not mention it. It doesn't say anything about air conditioning. So in 1937, I'm not sure they did. They did have color movies, obviously, but it does not mention anything about air conditioning in 1937. And I say that because I'll show you an ad in a few minutes where they make a big deal about coming and seeing a movie in our air-conditioned theaters. Okay, let's move on. Item number 17, this appeared in the Telegram September 1937, the same month as the previous ad. This was an ad for the Lyric Theater. And if you remember from earlier, the Lyric Theater was down 130 Southwest Main Street. So there was actually, within a couple blocks of each other there, the Lyric Theater was down there at 130 Southwest Main. The Palace Theater was in the next block at 238 Southwest Main. The Cameo Theater, of course, was at 184 Northwest Main. And so, within a couple, 3 blocks there, and of course the Savoy being literally around the corner on Thomas Street. So really within walking distance, you could walk to any one of the 4 actually. Okay, so let's move on then, Lee. Item number 18. This was not a movie theater event here, and this picture is terrible. I do apologize. You see the headline there. This was interesting to me for a couple of reasons. Number one, the headline says, Negroes Entertained at Annual Farm Day. This was actually an event that was put on by MC Brazel over in Battleboro. And it was a really neat event. In fact, I'm going to read the caption. There was 2 pictures that accompanied this article. This was the first one. And Lee, go ahead and put up the second picture because I wanted to read this to the viewers. And again, these pictures, they're really horrible. They're old and they're grainy, and the quality is not at all up to par of what I would like to present to you. But the caption is really neat. It says, Negro tenants of the MC Brazel Company at Brattleboro were entertained yesterday at a big barbecue at the Farmer Place Pasture near Brattleboro. Top photo shows General Manager Tom Pearsall at extreme right addressing the large gathering. About 800 Negroes were on hand. Photo at bottom left is Doug Cooper, who won the first prize of $25 for being the best farmer on the Brazel farms. Food was the main order of the day, as 1,500 pounds of barbecue was eating. Shown in photo at the right were Bobby Gorham. I'm not 100% positive, but I'm fairly certain that is the Bobby Gorham who would in later years go on to open up Tarrytown Mall. And then it says a young Negro youngster who said his name was Cotton, and Tommy Pearsall. Of course, Tom Pearsall went on to be a big farmer in the Rocky Mountain and now Brattleboro area as well. But this was something that MC Brazel did basically as an appreciation event, if you will. And it was geared specifically at his African-American farm tenants and employees, people who worked his farms. And, this was obviously a big event. I mean, 1,500 pounds of barbecue fed a lot of people. And the turnout, was obviously really spectacular. This many folks came out to this event. And that says something about the relationship between Mr. MC Brazel and the people who worked for him and worked and rented tenants, rented farms from him and so forth. He obviously was a well-respected gentleman, and I think it's safe to say that he had a very good relationship with the people that he worked with on a daily basis. Okay, Lee, item number 20, if you would. This is an ad that came out November 1st, 1941 for the Carolina Theater. I'd be curious to know if anyone remembers the Carolina Theater. And we'll get to a little bit later on. The Carolina Theater was, I mentioned that the Palace Theater was at 238 Southwest Main Street. As it turns out, by 1941, the Palace Theater was no longer there, but the Carolina Theater was. So again, 238 Southwest Main Street, the previous location for the Palace Theater was now the home for the Carolina Theater. And this ad you see there, it said, they had what they call a jinx show. It says, you walk under a ladder to purchase a ticket. You may spill salt on the table. You will see. We won't reveal the title, but it has action, mystery, and murder. Every 13th person admitted free. Will you be the unlucky 13th? So, it's a kind of a neat way to kind of drum up some interest in the movie and get people to come in the door. Just kind of a different way of promoting the movie and the theater itself. So I thought it was a neat idea there from a marketing standpoint. Item number 21, Lee, if you could. November 5th, 1941, this was an entire full-page ad. And I know you can't read what's on here. I just want to kind of share a couple things with you about this full-page ad. It was called the Theater Edition, 1941, 1942. And you see down there in the bottom left-hand corner, well, not the very bottom, but the taller column of the two, the world's greatest form of entertainment. And that column, I'm not going to read it, it's very long, and it's also so small, even with my glass, I don't think I can read it. But the point is, this full-page ad appeared in Rocky Mount Telegram, November 5th, 1941, basically paying tribute and homage to the movie theater and the movie industry itself. And so it was just a really neat thing that, and you see there's Clark Gable and Lana Turner in the bottom right-hand corner. I don't recognize some of these people. This is well before my time, obviously. Let me see, Fred McMurray. I do remember Fred McMurray of My Three Sons fame. Fred McMurray and Mary Martin in New Yorktown. Deanna Durbin and Sheridan. Bing Crosby, upper right-hand corner. Alice Faye. So it was just a really special thing to do to kind of get people in the mood to go see a movie. And so I think by that measure, it was probably a success. Number 22, if you could, Lee, we're almost out of time. We're not going to get through all these tonight. This was the 1942 Rocky Mount City Directory. And again, it just lists the motion picture theaters in Rocky Mount at that time. You see the Booker T was at 130 East Thomas Street. the Cameo at 184 Northwest Main, the Carolina at 238 Southwest Main, the Center at 138 Sunset Avenue. And these are just the theaters you'd go inside and sit down. Obviously, there was the Skyview Theater, the Star Theater, the 301. These were drive-in I'm referring to now. The Skyview, the Tower, the Star Theater, and so forth. In fact, Lee, let's move on to number 24. It'll be our last one. We'll skip over 23 and go to number 24. The Star Theater. Oh, there it is. The Star Drive-In Theater on Leggett Highway. I've got a picture of the field where this was, the theater itself. I don't have a picture of the actual theater, the drive-in, but I do have a picture of the field where the theater was. But this was in 1955. And so obviously, Rocky Mount's had a long and storied history with movie theaters and drive-in theaters, opera houses and stage productions and so forth. I just thought it was neat to go back and look and see how our ancestors entertained themselves over the years, over the last 100+ years. So bring it back to me. We ran time out of time, folks. I do apologize. I hope we'd get to more of these. I've got a few more. We'll try to get those next week. Thanks again for tuning in. Have a great week, folks. Take care of yourselves. Be kind to one another. We'll see you next week with more Wayback Wednesday. Good night.